Welcome to They Live by Film, a platform dedicated to bringing you film discussion and interviews from around the world. I am Adam Lundy, and I'm delighted to be finally back with my co-hosts Chris Haskell and Zach Bryant. Gentlemen, hello.
Hello, long time.
I'm back.
Welcome back, man. We
uh,
didn't know what to do without you. We just started panicking and recording best episodes.
I've been enjoying those episodes. They've been really good. I hope you listeners have been enjoying the really great episodes Zach and Chris have been putting out in my absence, talking about their favorite directors and Zach talking about his collection, modern slashers. It was fun change of pace. I know going by the listens, you guys were enjoying them, so maybe we'll try and bring you some of that kind of stuff, every now and again. It's like I could tell by the listening numbers that you guys were listening and enjoying those just as much as you do our normal episodes. That's pretty awesome. This is our first proper episode back. Obviously, you've just had the second interview we did with Deaf Crocodile. It was exactly 50 episodes later, which was a nice coincidence. There was exactly 50 episodes between the interviews we did with those guys. Hope you guys enjoyed that episode as well. But now we're back. We're back with a bang. We are changing it up a little bit again. I know we only just changed the format a few months ago. We are slightly changing the format again just to kind of go a little bit more into what we changed it to originally. So you noticed in the intro, I didn't explicitly mention the Criterion channel, and that's because we just decided to not force ourselves into that corner and force ourselves to have to choose stuff based on the Criterion Film Club, which we still do run over on the Criterion Conversation subreddit. We wanted to make this kind of as open a platform as possible for us to really talk about the films that we love. Obviously, that was a big reason why Chris and Zach were doing those episodes where they're talking about the directors they love. So we want to be able to talk about all the kind of films and genres we love and not be forced to talk about certain films and try and find stuff that go along with it. So we've kept our rotation where we left off. So it is Chris's turn this week. Chris, do you want to give a little intro as to what we're going to be talking about today and the reason why you chose these films?
I do. And real quick, when this episode airs, it's going to be the 19th of August, which means there's 10 days left in the Kickstarter that Deaf Crocodile is running for Solomon King. And the big reason, in case you're like, are we getting paid by them or something? We're not. One of the big reasons I'm drawing so much attention to this is, there are certain stories in film that I think deserve to be told. Hearing them go into the history of Solomon, Sal Watts a little bit, and just hearing like the impact he had on Oakland in that time in the 70s, 60s, and 70s. It's amazing this guy's story hasn't been told, and they're doing a good job through this film of doing it. So a good piece of history, good piece of preservation, and two good guys. So go support them if you haven't already. Okay, so there's the plug, and obviously thanks everybody for sticking through until El Jefe came back. Adam, it's good to see you. I saw. Are we gonna? I guess I don't. Are we? It's okay if I mention both of the names, right? We're not.
Well, they're gonna be in the episode descriptions, so it's all good.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, perfect. Okay, great. So I saw Caliber 9 as part of a box set that Raro Video put out. So if y'all haven't heard of Raro Video, they're an Italian company that brings Italian films to DVD and now obviously Blu-ray, and they have an American arm. Creatively titled Raro Video US, and I saw they put out a box set of this guy that I had kind of heard of, but I've never seen any of his films. A director named Fernando De Leo, and he was famous for in his words, he created the poliziotteschi genre. Who knows if that's true? People make claims all the time, but he believes that he made it, and his films are awesome. So I wanted to draw attention to De Leo now for a while, ever since I've seen the first four films in the box set. So The Italian Connection was one I really loved. Obviously, Caliber 9. There's a great film called The Boss. And I just think he's awesome. He, hardcore. We're gonna get into him in just a second. I think he's somebody that needs more attention. I think he should be mentioned as some of the good Italian directors that are, good Italian, genre directors. And I didn't know the natural place to bring it in until I happened to see Bullitt recently. And I was like, oh, yeah, here we go. So once we decided to change formats, it just kind of coincided with a few days after I had seen Bullitt, and I knew how to bring DeLeo into the discussion. Bullitt was way cooler than I expected it to be. So we'll get into that in just a second, obviously. But yeah, there we go. So there's the first two films in our new format 3.0.
Awesome. Well, we'll kick off with Bullitt. So for those who don't know, Bullitt, directed by a dude called Peter Yates, who doesn't have the best filmography. Me and Zach were looking to see if we recognized any films. I think the only one we both recognized was The Friends of Eddie Coyle, but neither of us have actually seen it. It was released in 1968. It's obviously famous for its car chase. But just to give you just a brief overview of the synopsis as per IMDb, an all guts, no glory San Francisco cop becomes determined to find the underworld kingpin that killed a witness in his protection. So yeah, it's a pretty basic overview. This was my first time seeing Bullitt. I know it's an iconic American film, but it's one of those ones that I had known about and I was aware of, especially because of the car chase. It's probably the most famous car chase, or at least most influential in American cinema. So I was aware of the film because of that, but I didn't actually know anything about it, didn't know what it was about. I knew Steve McQueen was in it, but that was about it. So I kind of went in pretty blind. I thought it was fine. I wasn't offended by it. I wasn't necessarily blown away by it, but I thought it was good. Zach, Chris, had you seen Bullitt before? I know it's an iconic American film, so I don't know if you guys had just kind of come across it just generally before.
Zach, why don't you go first?
I actually saw the film. I didn't rewatch it for this one. I got to see it in theaters in 2018 for its 50th anniversary.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
That's cool. Yeah, which was really cool to do. I'm kind of where Adam is. I thought then it's fine. Now I felt a little bit better seeing in theaters just because I think it does have good cinematography. I think the editing is really good. The chase scene is famous, and it's cool to see it on the big screen. But yeah, I overall I don't have a ton to say, but yeah, I liked it for what it is. It's as far as Steve McQueen movies go, I mean, it's not Great Escape or anything like that.
So I have a huge gap in my Steve McQueen viewing. It's possible I'm wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure my only exposure to him in terms of actually seeing his films was The Blob.
I'm the same.
We did talk about The Blob on here.
Yeah.
So I did not think he was a great actor based strictly on The Blob. He was great here. The world puts this as the 1,353rd best film.
That's fine. I'm not offended by that.
Yeah, just outside of the top 1,000. It's surrounded by Repo Man, a short film about love. And let's see. Anyways, so it's kind of in that area.
Have you never seen? Sorry to undercut you there. I'm just looking at Steve McQueen's filmography. Have you never seen the original Magnificent Seven?
Oh, good call. Yeah, there we go. Okay, fine.
Okay. I was gonna get worried there. Okay.
Yeah, good call. Yeah,
I was like, I have to change up my Pixar. We're gonna have to watch Magnificent Seven with Samurai.
Well,
such a good film.
That movie was so influential. Kurosawa remade that story, right?
Yeah,
I think that was the order it happened.
That was the order, right?
That was it. Yeah, for sure.
I
think they were both influenced by the Chris Pratt original, though. I'm not too sure.
I think I've seen the first three of those ones. Anyways, okay. So I am a sucker for gritty 70s crime kind of films. I know this is made in the 60s. This is 68. But I'm a sucker for the Dirty Harry, for the French Connection, for the Conversation. Those films, I don't know if it's nostalgia or what it is, but I just think they're cool films. They're in a period, they talk about that first generation of directors that came up studying film. Mm-hmm. And so this is that first generation of directors that came up studying the work of people from the 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s even. So, you know, you have this next generation of cinema, and Peter Yates is not a household name amongst some of the other guys on that list. But you know, he was it feels like he was kind of a solid director. I'm surprised that when you were going through his filmography, you didn't mention Krull.
Oh, I did mention Krull when I was talking about to Zach. That was the first one I saw. Like, oh, he did Krull. Just a very random jump.
Yeah,
between
totally.
Krull.
Yeah, totally. It's a goofy, fun movie. But he obviously had a thing. Like he came up through TV on The Saint and Secret Agent, and then his movies had creative titles such as Robbery, such as Eyewitness, Suspect. So I think, you know,
very Colombian noir.
Yeah, totally. So I think he had a thing. The reason why I was kind of drawn to this movie is I think it does a really good job. So I think Steve McQueen, now that I've seen this, and you reminded me about Magnificent Seven, I think he's at his best when he plays that kind of quiet, cool sort of role that, you know, maybe Robert Redford can play a little bit when he was young as well. Peter Fonda could play it a little bit when he was young. There's certain actors that can kind of pull that off. You have to be deadly handsome, and I think you also have to be a little bit grizzled and kind of. I think he has those characteristics well. And beyond him, again, I know it's not revolutionary, but I like the way that this movie tells the story. I like the way that things fall apart. I like the way that he starts to piece it back together. You know, there's that trope of the pressure to give up the case, or the pressure from the police, the bosses of the, you know, the up top to kind of let it go. And he's dogged and he stays on it and he tries to figure it out. These are all things that work well for me. So I think it raised it up quite a bit when I saw it.
You know, if you guys, I don't know if either of you have seen it. If you want like what I think is Steve McQueen's like best acting performance, I would really recommend the Thomas Crown Affair.
Oh, really?
I've heard of it.
Yeah. Very good movie. He played a little bit against type in that one, and I think it really pulled off for him. I just think he did a really good job in it. If you want to, it's probably the polar opposite of the Blob.
I've heard of it. I've definitely heard of it.
Well, yeah, I've only ever seen the remake of that, which I did not like, but I've heard the
There's
original.
a remake of that?
Of Thomas Crown Affair?
Yeah.
Yeah, it has one of the Bonds and like Renee.
Yeah,
Russo.
Pierce Brosnan, I'm pretty sure, is in it.
Yeah.
Oh.
In the 90s.
No.
Yeah, it is Pierce. It is Pierce
Brosnan?
Brosnan. Yeah, it's Pierce Brosnan. Yeah, just looked it up.
Interesting. I actually didn't know that was remade, but this actually came out the same year Bullet did. Jesus, he was busy in '68.
Yeah, he definitely hit his prime there. Yeah, I don't know. There's the whole. I think he's good in this. So he went from the Blob to. I mean, he went pretty much straight into kind of anti-heroes or these more grizzled roles. He did the St. Louis Bank robbery right after that, and then Magnificent Seven. So he seemed to know what type of film he wanted to be in, or his agent did.
And it's interesting to see already, because we're going to be talking about Italian films soon, so I figure I'll get the ball rolling there. We're already kind of seeing the influence of like Clint Eastwood in the Dollars trilogy. Of course, the last one of that comes out the same year. But the more anti-hero type role, away from that American white hat cowboy sort of thing, and seeing people like Steve McQueen, I think that's really cool to see. And as much as the spaghetti western was rejected, it's obviously pulling its fans in the American headspace.
Yeah, it comes back to what Chris is saying about this is like the band of directors that were influenced by what's come before them. From an aesthetic point of view, what I love about this film the most is what kind of Chris had mentioned about coming into this era of kind of 70s new Hollywood, as they called it. That sort of, as Chris said, that generation of filmmakers that went to film school or were heavily influenced by what came before them, the likes of Robert Altman and Martin Scorsese and George Lucas, Spielberg, all those kinds of guys who would come up in the 70s. This film obviously predates it, it's 1968, as we said, but it has the aesthetic of a new Hollywood film,
Yeah.
while also having some of the sort of tropes and the storytelling of a noir. So it's very much a sort of like a middle ground film between the old and new. You know, kind of like the neo noir vibe, sort of like a like a contemporary sort of version of Chinatown, perhaps, because obviously Chinatown was set in the 40s, whereas this is set in the 60s. So, but it has that kind of loopy story, this sort of very sort of twisty plot, that would have happened at neo noirs, but it looks and feels like a gritty 70s sort of crime action film, like the ones you'd mentioned, like Dirty Harry, like The French Connection. It has that griminess to it that a lot of 70s cinema had, especially for crime films that had that grimy sort of boots on the street, that kind of aesthetic to it. So that's what I really like. I thought it really interesting. Like, I didn't look at what year the film came out when I watched it. So when I was watching it, I just assumed it was 70s. So to see that it came out before, like, it becomes immediately obvious how influential this film was.
Right.
You know, not just from the car chase, which I'm sure we'll talk about because it's what everyone talks about. It's probably the most famous aspect of the whole film. But just with the aesthetics, with the cinematography, as Zach had talked about, its score, you know, it's all so 70s, but it's made in 68, which is what I think is really, really cool about this film.
Yeah, and it made 42 million. I'm looking this up now. When you said like speaking of the way that Hollywood tends to copycat success, right? So it made 42 million off of a $4 million budget. So obviously, wow. I'm sure producers were just frothing at the mouth of how to duplicate the success of this.
That's always what happens. And once one cheap thing becomes super successful, Hollywood churns out, you know, a million copies. That happened with Halloween. It happened with Paranormal Activity. Yeah. It happens with horror movies a lot more than it does anything else, I've noticed. But it's just a very common thing. Once one thing is made cheap and becomes uber successful, they just try and replicate that because, you know, you might as well do it while it's hot.
Yeah.
And I know Chris has talked about this before. How many 1968 films have we done at this point? Like, this is another one, because this was like Once Upon a Time in the West. I know we talked about that, and I feel like we talked about how many 68 films we've talked about.
Oh yeah, I think we did have this conversation before. Wasn't Black Panthers 1968 as well?
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, 1968 Black Panthers.
Let's see. I just typed in popular 68 movies. I don't know a quick way to do that, but
I mean, that year we had Rosemary's Baby, Night of the Living Dead, 2001. I mean, 68 is a huge year.
What a great year for film, you know?
Yeah.
I'm just looking through Planet of the Apes.
Yeah. Faces, which I know y'all loved. Death by Hanging. Oh, yeah. So Death by Hanging is one we talked about.
Yeah.
You get Coogan's Bluff, which I'm not a big fan of Coogan's Bluff, but it's there.
Oh, there's your Thomas Crown Affair.
Yeah, that was 68. Great Silence. I know Adam's a big fan of The Great Silence.
Yeah, it's good. It's good fun. I'm trying to see what Bergman films were made in 1968.
That was his year off. Actually,
Shame.
Shame.
So,
okay.
Shame was 1968, which is one of his best. So 1968, great year for film, it seems.
Yeah, it was like that beginning of the best decade.
Yeah,
exactly. What did y'all think about so are y'all a sucker for this genre of films as much as me, or are you more?
I'm definitely not a sucker for this genre of films.
Okay.
I've just never been a crime guy. I'm just, you know, I like Goodfellas, and then I can't think of any other crime films off the top of my head that I like. I've just never really been a police crime cat and mouse police chase. I've just never been into that genre at all.
You like police procedurals, right? Like when they're done well.
So I do and I don't. So I like them when they are more focused on, what's the best way to put this? Neve always calls me picky when I'm with my food. I'm very picky. And I feel like I'm very picky with the genre as well. I can't really pinpoint why I do and don't like some of them. I don't know. Yeah, I just if I'm sitting down and trying to think of a film to watch, like police crime actioners are like the least one I'll think of.
So it's funny. By the way, I'm picky as well. So this is not. It's just interesting, right? Because like you tend to like noirs, right? You're the guy we go to for noir stuff, and
Yeah,
and
but
you'll defend.
I prefer the noirs when it's the normal guy who gets thrown into it. I don't really care that much for the detective ones.
Ah,
I couldn't give a shit about the Big Sleep.
got you. Got you.
Um,
That's the tip.
I,
That's the difference.
I like the noirs when the normal guy gets thrown into the shit. That's the kind of noirs I like.
Zach, what about you?
Um, Part of me wants to say yes, but then I'm like, well, which ones do I like? And it's like I like Dirty Harry because I mean, at that point, Harry Callahan is barely a cop. Like he's basically
Totally.
the anti-hero cowboy he played just in San Francisco. I mean, so it's like, yeah, I like Steve McQueen's character in that because that's kind of what it is. I mean, it's the strong, silent type. Though I think he's a lot less corrupt than Dirty Harry Callahan is.
But also,
I
Dirty Harry goes off the rails. Like at one point, it almost becomes a parody of the genre. It's so like it's so intense. Like and he's like the back half of the film when he's like running from like phone booth to phone booth, and like it goes so crazy near the end of the movie.
Well, and that's like they go through that whole thing where Dirty Harry. The whole thing with that is there's a part where he shoots the guy who did it like several times and all this other stuff. And they're like, yeah, this arrest isn't any good, dude. You can't do that. Like
Right.
we have to let him go. And that's when the whole actual thing I think people remember start up. But yeah, it's kind of I think that's kind of making fun of this genre of film where the guy basically ignores due process at this point and
Uh-huh.
just goes for it. So I mean, I think it's fun, but it's kind of funny how quick that was parodied as well in some of
Yeah.
these films.
I'll jump in to say I do like Dirty Harry as well. So
It's a hard one not to like. It's Don Siegel.
yeah, it's a good film. It's a good film.
Um,
Also has a banging soundtrack.
Yeah, it does.
yeah, soundtracks really make these, right? I know
They do. They have an energy. They do have an energy to them. Like they do
that's
help.
the thing. Like it's almost like you can take a slow moment in a picture, and if you put this like driving, like percussive kind of beat to it, all of a sudden you're super into like this moment where they're just like driving or something, like
And I'm just wondering from a timeline point of view, because that the kind of soundtracks that are in these movies, like Dirty Harry and Bullet and stuff, they're the soundtracks that I do associate with Italian films, with
yeah.
like with Giallo films and stuff like that. It's like Argento especially. And I don't know if you know, because obviously you'll know a lot about the timelines of like these films and where they maybe overlap. But where does the influence come from? Is it from the American side? Is it from the Italian side? Is it just a happy coincidence? Because they seem to be very similar in style in terms of how they do their soundtracks.
Before Chris answers, my guess is going to be Ennio Morricone. Like that's just going to be my
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. That's actually a very good shout.
But
Yeah.
there may be a better answer.
I mean, I don't know specifically about this film, and I want to be careful this doesn't sound racist, but if you look at the history of like Italian films from the 60s and 70s, one of the most common stories you hear is like producers saw blank from the US and made it like the same year sometimes or like
Yeah.
next year. But they pulled some crazy shit like Zombie 2 came out, but like and Zombie 1 was basically, what was it, Dawn of the Dead?
It's Dawn of the Dead. That's
Yeah.
what they call Zombie 1.
And so they just made a Zombie 2 because like the Italian audiences would kind of associate it with that. And it's
Nothing to
nothing.
do with the first
No.
Nothing.
So they pulled all sorts of shenanigans with marketing and stuff. But I don't know. It's so hard to tell because at the same time you have like this stereotype as well of the Italians that are so into their craft, right? And so like proud of their craft and like the art behind the filmmaking. And if you hear the funniest interview, I think, just from a like perception versus reality thing, remember Troll 2? Have you all both seen that?
Yeah.
They're eating her, and then they're going to eat me.
Yeah.
Oh my god! While the
So
fly walks across his face. Yeah.
that director has no sense of humor about Troll 2. Like and like he in his mind, he's making this beautiful thing, and any humor that came out of it is just it must be because of the translation or something, you know? Um,
What a hill to die on.
yeah, no, exactly. But he was he wrote, like, the funny thing is he came out of this machine that was making, Claudio Fragasso, this is the guy's name. And he was a writer he wrote alongside some of the best Italian directors. And he had a brief career directing. And so anyways, I'm getting, way off here, but my point is, I think it's that same thing where, Kurosawa was influenced by American Story that he saw to create Rashomon and to create, was it Seven Samurai too? Anyways, Kurosawa was influenced by so many of John Ford movies and so many American stories, and then people started copying him. At some point, it just gets muddled up and it all gets
It's all symbiotic, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know exactly for the crime genre, but the crime genre has been around almost as long as there's been films, right? In some form.
It's true.
Well, it's like you hear this all the time where you see in a lot of reviews where people are like, well, it just ripped off this. I'm like, yeah, about every film has ripped off every other film at this point. So what difference does it make anymore?
Yeah.
There's a famous quote. It's like everything is a copy of a copy of a copy. So
Totally.
It's always going to be that way.
Yeah, and I'm sure the same is true for music, because this is a massive blind spot for me, but the people that grew up on like the classical sort of composers probably just did a riff on that for the film scores, right?
Yeah, I mean,
probably, yeah.
Yeah. Which I guess before we leave this one, I guess we'd be remiss not to talk about the most famous scene in the movie, right?
The car chases. Yeah.
Yes.
Car chases. Yeah, it's a cool car chase, of course. I don't really know what.
Well edited. I think Bullitt won best editing at the Oscars for that. I'm gonna double check.
I was surprised considering how just how different it was.
Yeah, it won for best film editing, and it was also nominated for best sound.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. The only thing that I saw in the cinema that I'll never be able to unsee is there's a part where the car is going down the San Francisco hills and it hits this white car on the side, and you can see it edited out.
Yeah,
I was like, oh my god!
I noticed that as well. It just suddenly just disappears from the frame. It's like, what? That really threw me off. It should not have won for editing. That's such a basic editing error. That really
everything
threw
else
me off.
That is fine. I was in the cinema. I was like, did that car just disappear?
Yeah, I'm glad it was. I thought I was streaming it on Apple TV, and I thought, Jesus, did that really jitter that much? That was a really weird. That was a really weird glitch. Yeah.
I think the car chase is fine. Something about the car chase and the French Connection for me, I don't know if it's because of early exposure to it. I don't think anything beats that for me in terms of 70s car chases.
Yeah, I don't think that we can say that Bullitt is the best car chase ever. It's definitely the most influential though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think with what 50 odd years of cinema that's come after it, I don't really think we can say even as much as we like to shit on Michael Bay, even car chase in The Rock is probably better, and that was as influenced as Bullitt as it could possibly be, considering it's also in San Francisco. So
it's one of those things where I can imagine an interview with George Miller where he says, yeah, I love Bullitt, and I'm like, that's why I made Mad Max, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't think we can sit here and say Bullitt is the best car chase, but I think we can sit here and say it's the most influential car chase.
Well, here's kind of a random game. So it looks like I was just going through the awards thing on Wikipedia, and then the next thing down was Legacy. So it looks like Spielberg is going to be directing a film that's on the Frank Bullitt character. Looks like it's in script phase right now. Who's playing Bullitt today? And please don't say Timothy Chalamet.
Ryan Gosling, surely.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
sitting here trying to think who's the guy who played him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He had such a small part, but he looked sort of like him.
Oh, yeah, that's probably the right answer.
I
like
think Steve. I did do that.
well, they
Right?
probably don't have him cast if it's only in the scripting phase.
Yeah,
Apparently, it's being executively produced by his son. So
his son played in a horror movie I watched recently. That was random, but I was just kind of amazed. Damian Lewis is who played him in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and now that I'm
he's
looking
a
at a picture of him, I'm like
he's
it
a
doesn't
good
really look
actor.
like him. Yeah,
He's a
he
good
was in
actor.
Band of Brothers. I remember him in that.
Yeah, he's a good actor. But I suppose are they looking to actually just like does it have to be someone who looks like Steve McQueen, or are they just doing a new
That's
take on the
true.
character?
I guess it's just kind of like a yeah,
Like
because I guess
to be
I
fair
thought
to
you go
Damian
by that.
Lewis, like he looks like Steve McQueen and he's also a good actor, so I suppose that helps.
Yeah.
There's no point in picking someone who just looks like the person, but they're not actually that good of an actor. So
Yeah, I guess that'd be like getting Scott Eastwood to play his dad. I don't know how well that would go if they made a movie on Clint Eastwood.
people will keep asking for it until someone gives Scott Eastwood a big role and they see him act. They will just continue to ask for it. So sometimes you
He
got to
played
give
in
people what they
a
want.
movie with Jason Statham a couple years ago called Wrath of Man, and he was actually really good in that because like that charming thing he tries to do, the character is basically a psychopath, and I'm like, it actually works for him because it feels so fake. Like it feels like this fake charm, and I'm like, it works.
Accidentally good.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it's fun. I missed you guys. That was fun. We have to do this more often. I love talking movies with y'all. One of the other recurring segments we have that made the cut we're keeping is Collection Corner. We're still buying. So I'm going to take this in a slightly different route. So I just finished all of Wong Kar-wai's films. Just finished The Grandmaster. So I'm putting together the next kind of director that I'm going to do. And I realized that I have already pretty much all of the Kieslowski movies through a variety of box sets that I've collected over the years. So I went on IMDb to check out sort of his filmography. And he's made a ton of documentaries and a ton of like TV movies, like way more than I expected. I forget the actual count of his feature films that were theatrically released, but it's only like 10 or 11 or 12. It's not that many, but he has 43 credits, and a lot of them are TV movies or docs or shorts. And it just so happens that a lot of the releases that the Criterion's put out or Arrow's put out, they have a lot of the short films on there. And so there was only two big gaps as I was going through kind of what I had and what I needed. Just, I realized that this is the first director that I might actually be able to see everything, because a lot of times they don't put out director short films or it's kind of hard to track them down or whatever. But because Kieslowski is so loved in Europe, when they had the really like heyday of DVD, there was some really niche DVDs that were put out. So I'm waiting on one to come in, which is his documentaries. And it has, does it say quickly on here how many? It has, this is a 2 DVD set that has almost all of his documentaries. So I won't go through the list, but yeah, it has at least 10. And then there's another one from Arrow Academy that I got in, which is the Decalogue plus his TV movies. So it's got 5 or 6 TV movies. And so between all of these kind of random, like if you look at Double Life of Veronique, it has, 3 short documentaries as part of the special feature. So, if you go through all of his releases, it's actually, you only have to end up buying 8 things to get all of his films. And so
you have the Cinema Conflict set, right?
I do, and I'm so glad I have it because it's extremely expensive to buy now.
Oh, is it? Fuck, I better sell mine.
Yeah. If you need money.
Because I have the original sort of, yeah, I think you have the same one when they first released.
Yeah, this was never released in the US, so this was only the Region B.
Ah, nice. Okay.
And I'm sure it's just a right issue, but yeah, Arrow did a good job of releasing his like more obscure stuff. So they have this one, which has his early films plus a bunch of shorts, and then the other one they put out, which is the Decalogue plus his TV movies. Anyways, yeah. So I will be, as soon as those come in. One of them is any day now. One of them is probably in early September. But whenever those come in, I'm going to jump into Kieslowski now. And there's 43 things I'm going to watch. And I think, but some of them are like 3 minutes long. So it's not like it's, 43 features. But then I think I'm only having to watch 4 things on YouTube. It's pretty much comprehensive outside of that. So that's what about y'all?
Well, I haven't bought anything, so I'm just going to shout out 2 things that's coming out that I'm looking forward to. First, all hail Criterion for releasing one of the greatest films of all time, Lost Highway. I cannot wait for that to come out so that you guys can watch it and then we can talk about it.
But it was an Inland Empire, so it's terrible.
No, fuck Inland Empire. Lost Highway is way better. Only hipsters like Inland Empire. No, I'm really excited to have it on Blu-ray. I have my old DVD copy that I've had for years as part of a David Lynch DVD box set the Studio Canal put out years ago. So I'm really happy to getting a Blu-ray. I'm glad that Lynch was directly involved, so I know we're getting we're getting a good representation of his vision for it. And I'm even happier that Criterion are putting it out in Region B as well, so I don't have to import it because that is a pain in the ass. So I'm very, very thankful that I'll be having that in October when it releases in the US as well. There's no delay, which is great. The other thing I'm really looking forward to, which I know a lot of people, especially you, Chris, is looking forward to it. Arrow have just announced, I think it was leaked, so they kind of had to announce it. Shawscope Volume 2 is going to be coming out later this year, I think in November, if I remember correctly. Like Volume 1, just full of old Shaw Brothers movies, the Hong Kong primarily Kung Fu studio. The one, there's a bunch of films on here I've never heard of, which was the same on the first Shaw Brothers set, and I still haven't finished that one, but I did enjoy the majority of the ones that I did watch, so I will be making my way through this one. But the very first one on the list is a film I've wanted to see for a long time, which is the 36th Chamber of Shaolin. Funnily enough, I think the last episode we recorded together was for Ghost Dog, right? That was the last one we recorded for. Yeah. And obviously the RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan did the soundtrack for that, and 36th Chamber of Shaolin is very influential on Wu-Tang Clan's music. Their first album, their influential album, is called Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers. So I'm gonna watch that one dubbed so I could try and hear the pieces that he sampled on that album. But awesome. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the set in general, but I'm especially looking forward to seeing the 36th Chamber of Shaolin because it's just not available in Region B. I don't know if it's the same in Region A, but it's just, you just can't watch it. It just doesn't exist in a format here. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that when it eventually comes out.
I swear it had a DVD release, but maybe I'm crazy.
Maybe it did once upon a time. It's certainly not available now anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to finally being able to see it. It sounds cool as hell as well. I've read, I know what it's about, so it sounds like a cool film.
Well, for the last one, I'm kind of in a similar boat to Adam. I haven't bought a whole lot recently, but October is going to murder me. So I'll go over one I've pre-ordered, already have, because I have a compulsion for Halloween, just anything that comes out. Scream Factory has decided to continue what they were doing before. They stopped their 4K sets at number 5. So now we're getting Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, Halloween H2O, and Halloween Resurrection. The holy trilogy of amazing movies in that set. And the problem was I only owned those movies once. So Scream Factory has decided I need to own 2 copies of that movie now and make that box set I have about as worthless as possible, because now that'll put everything in 4K except for Rob Zombie's Halloween films, which I'm sure they'll get to if Lionsgate lets them.
This is great news for me because hopefully it will reduce the value of those original box set. And
it already has. It really has. Perfect. Like I think I saw them for like $250, and I'm like, that's a far cry from the $800 it used to be regularly. And I mean, the only thing that you can't get, I mean, the only thing they haven't redone now is the Rob Zombie Halloween films, which those were never complete because they don't have the theatrical versions in them. He doesn't like the theatrical versions. They wouldn't allow them on the Scream Factory complete set, which I'm sure sucked for them. But I ordered from Canada because I really hate the director's cut of his Halloween. I hate both of his Halloweens anyway, but I hate that one a little bit more. So yeah, there's my compulsion. And then October is going to have a new Indicator box sets coming out from a director I've never heard of. So I'm going to buy it because I don't know why. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is getting a 4K, but from Vinegar Syndrome in October. So I'm just going to be broke, I guess.
Oh, that Indicator one. That was from the one with the really cool cover, wasn't it?
Michael J. Powell?
Yeah, Michael J. Murphy and something like that. Yeah, that box art is sick.
Yeah, I have never heard of this guy. I can't recognize a single movie on there, so I'm gonna buy it.
Oh, it just looks like cheap as crap.
Yeah,
exploitation-y horror films. So right up your alley.
I'll start picking things from that in October.
Yeah, I just realized actually it's not an episode of Collection Corner if I don't talk about a noir set. Indicator announced Universal Noir. Obviously, I've talked about every version of Columbia Noir, but they've also announced Universal Noir, so they've obviously ran out of Columbia films that they can license. So now they're on to Universal Noir, which is also a set of films I've never heard of, but I'll probably end up buying it anyway.
I mean, you got to complete the collection.
Yeah, it has to be done. That's the only aesthetically needed.
They've definitely run out of Columbia films because if you look at the spine number, they just go on directly from the Columbia set. There's no gap.
Oh, well, there we go. Yep, that pretty much confirms it then.
Yeah.
Because we know as we have an inside track on how Indicator do their spine numbers. If you want to know, listen to our Indicator interview.
And if you know how Arrow does theirs, please let us know because I still haven't figured it out.
It's because they don't. God. They just don't have spine numbers.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
They're just serial, basically like serial numbers. They're just like randomly assigned, which is why. I'm sorry for going off track here. This is something that I listened to on a different podcast before, and I always found it interesting. As to why there's no easy way to track Arrow's releases. No way like Criterion has like a Wikipedia page that has all the Criterion releases. Arrow doesn't have a version of that because they don't have spine numbers. Because Wikipedia can't be used as basically an inventory system. If something doesn't have spine, the Criterion get away with it because they have spine numbers, it's a collection. Whereas Arrow are not allowed to list everything they've released because that technically counts as inventory because it's not spined. So if you're ever wondering why there isn't an Arrow equivalent of the Wikipedia page for every Criterion release, it's because they don't have spine numbers. So Wikipedia takes it down because you can't just create a Wikipedia page for inventory purposes, basically.
Okay, so sorry, I can't believe I have a chance to talk about this. So my obsessive personality, when I first got into Arrow, I went through weekly release dates from them, dating back all the way from at least for their US releases. And I tried to piece together a release system for them, like a spine system from them, because I wanted to know what that complete list was. They make it to release 143, and then 144 has never been released. No idea why. 145 has been released, and then from there, or if it has been released, I should say, there's no way to track it down. There's no digital like footprint of this release. So from there, in the first, I went all the way up to release 300, and then I just gave up because there was already like 30 spine numbers that were just a gap. And that's when I realized that like they do not think of these releases the way that I do. Because like, they have a release that came out this year that was, 200 something. And
it's got to be kind of like with BFI and Targets, right? Like there's just random shit they have to put on hold or they have to cancel, and it gets to keep that number, but until it releases, it never comes out.
That's exactly what I'm thinking it is. Yeah, like they had plans and then it got scrapped for some reason or another.
Yeah, that's because Targets I'm still disappointed about.
Yeah, I know. Well, hopefully it comes back.
Yeah, that sucked. So I only found out by accident because I was like, I'm sure Target was supposed to be out by now. Like, I want to try and buy it, and I just couldn't find I couldn't find anything about it even existing. I was like, what the fuck? That I didn't dream this. I knew this was being released, and yeah, hopefully they sort out whatever rights issues going on there.
From my understanding, I can't remember who made the film. I have a feeling it's
Peter Bogdanovich. Oh,
well,
sorry,
I just meant like
studio,
the company. I can't remember who owns it, but they are supposed to be doing the 4K master. And from my understanding, they're not really returning BFI's emails.
Okay.
And
We need
so
to get
they're
someone.
like, we don't know when it's going to be done.
We need to get someone from BFI on and ask them. I think that's
because that's what I've heard. At least that's what the Blu-ray forums are running on about. So
that's how we've gotten on most of our questions answered. That's how we got our Ishtar questions answered, even though we couldn't release them. We know privately about Ishtar. We need to learn. We need to find out. We need to grill someone who works for BFI to find out what happened to Target.
That's okay. We just want to advertise your new 4K stuff. Please let us know. Fire us targets.
I think it was Anthony, right, that said he has a lot of connections over there. I'll reach out to him and see if we can't make that.
That'd be cool.
The listeners, future, you may have a BFI episode if we work it out.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Who knows?
I like BFI. I have a good few of their releases.
Yeah,
so that'd be nice. I think they do good stuff. Sure. We'll move on to our second film, which Chris obviously mentioned earlier. Wait, what am I doing this? Zach, introduce the next film.
I thought I was going to get away with not mispronouncing something.
No, not at
all. All right, for our second film, we're going to be talking about Milano Calibro 9 or Caliber 9. I had to at least mess up something by Fernando De Leo. Just out of prison, ex-con Ugo meets his former employer, a psychopathic gangster Rocco, who enjoys a sick violence and torture. Both the gangsters and the police believe Ugo has hidden $300,000 that should have gone to an American drug syndicate boss. Chris, where is the numbers at for this one if they are there?
Oh no! I want to hear y'all's gut reaction first, and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Just a quick question, just before we get into it. I just streamed this on Prime, and it was dubbed. Was it supposed to be dubbed, or was that a problem?
I always watch these movies subtitled, but it doesn't really matter because a lot of times they'll get actors from all over the world, and
that's what I was thinking. Yeah, like a lot of them looked like they were
too.
talking in English, and obviously just dubbed over them with actual Americans. So I just wanted to see if that was a problem or not. That was the only version I had available, was the dubbed version. So
the dubbed version is on YouTube, so that's how I watched it.
Nice. Okay. Well, just knee jerk reaction. What do y'all think?
I liked it. Actually, I liked it better than Bullet. I'm trying to think. Like it doesn't feel quite as polished as Bullet does, but I like it better in the sense that I kind of like that grittiness to it. Like it has a little bit more grit than Bullet does.
Yeah, I'm the same with Zach. I probably liked it about the same as Bullet, but this is a bit like Zach's a bit grittier, a bit more unpolished, which I think gives it a bit more character. It's definitely more in line with with Giallo, that kind of style, which we all know, and with it being sort of early 70s, even though it's different genre, they stylistically are not too dissimilar in terms of how it's filmed and the acting performances and the colors and stuff. But I thought it was fine. I didn't fall in love with the plot. There was times during the plot I'm like, I don't really remember what's happening, but
it was an Italian film.
Yeah, it was decently directed. Soundtrack was good. Barbara Boucher's hot. Yeah. The
main character looks like Jason Statham's dad. That's who I thought of the whole time. I was like, they made an American remake. This would be
good.
I was thinking Italian David Harbour.
That's worse.
So yeah, Caliber 9 is a film. It's definitely one of the films of all time.
All right, so I'll make this quick, but here's my quick background on De Leo. So the world views this as 11,087, which possibly is his highest ranking. He's not really like a name that's on the tip of the tongue for a lot of people. And I feel like that's a crime. I feel like he's at least on par with a lot of the Italian directors. He was you what? Oh, he was a writer for Fistful of Dollars, and then an uncredited writer. I don't know exactly what that means, but he claims to have invented the spaghetti western genre. So
I'll take his word for it.
it's funny in an interview with him, he's not shy to make big claims. Like you can tell he's a self-promoter. So he was a co-writer on Fistful of Dollars. And then I don't know, have either one of y'all seen the Ringo movies, A Pistol for Ringo, Return of Ringo?
No.
I've seen the first one.
Okay, cool spaghetti western flicks. He was a writer on those. Then he was a uncredited writer on A Few Dollars More. And then Django. So Johnny Yuma. So big, like he was deeply involved in spaghetti westerns, and then started directing and started with a few random ones I haven't seen. I think there might even be like kind of erotic films, and then Caliber 9. So then he hit the ground with Caliber 9. That was like the first one that kind of wasn't called asylum erotica or naked violence, that kind of thing. And he like just sort of took Italy by storm. So Caliber 9, and then the next one is Italian Connection, then The Boss. One of his other ones that's a little famous, a chance y'all have heard of it, is called Shoot First, Die Later. Mm-hmm. But so in his words, he then created the Poliziotteschi genre as well.
I'm surprised he doesn't go back and say, I created Giallo. I told Bob I had to do it.
No, totally. Just created horror. Like you might as well, you know. I'm drawn to bombastic personalities that are like dead set on making their vision and sort of see it through. And so I'm a sucker for movies like Caliber 9. Like I think it is him making a movie that he sort of saw pieces of somewhere else, right? Like it has so many elements of crime films from like from America throughout history, and yet it's definitely fully Italian as well, right? And I think I like the character of Ugo Piazza, the Jason Statham's dad. I think he's a cool, like I think he does a good job of like being on screen, and I think he kind of owns that role well. He's quiet. He shouldn't be cool. Like he's kind of like, like the first few minutes, I feel like he's almost like awkward in his own skin or something. But then I kind of like the way the film uses him. And then one of my like secret actors that I love anytime he's on screen is Mario Adorf, who's the guy Rocco, the guy who he's like, you know, beefing with the whole time. He looks like a cartoon character. He has these like big goofy facial expressions, and it's hard to take him seriously, but I love him. He had a big role in either The Italian Connection or The Boss. I can't remember. He was one of the leads in that. But anyways, I just think he's like a great big goofball, but in all the ways that are good. And he was even in some spaghetti westerns too, I think. I'm just going to double check that really fast, but I'm pretty sure he was in some of the Leone westerns as well. Let's see if I can. Oh well, I can't find it quickly. It's not important, but I swear he was in. Okay, well, yeah, I'm not finding it quickly, but
he reminded me of I can't remember the character's name, but the ugly in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. He reminded
Eli
me
Wallach.
Of him. Yes. No, not Eli. Yes, Eli Wallach. Yeah.
Yeah.
He reminded me of Eli Wallach a little bit. Tuco. Yeah. That was the character's name, Tuco.
Yeah, Tuco. Eli Wallach, the actor.
Yeah, he reminded me a little bit of him, just in his sort of, you know, with the mustache and everything like that. They just, yeah, I don't know. He just had the same kind of. He just literally like looked like the same dude.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys see that as well, but yeah, he reminded me a lot of Tuco.
Budget Eli Wallach.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask Chris, you're a little bit more familiar with this genre than I am, and I think Adam, you mentioned before we started, this was kind of your first one too. A couple years later, we're going to get Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion, which we did an episode on
Mhm.
forever ago. I guess it's been over a year now.
Mhm.
That seems to be kind of a parody of sorts of this genre, which seems really early. But I didn't know if I'm just making that connection and that's not really there and it's not supposed to be. But
Oh, good
I don't know
question.
I don't know if it's a parody. I would find it more to be just kind of like using it as a platform for a
Mhm.
philosophical postmodern discussion, if that makes sense. As I don't think it outright, like when we call something a parody, like we're taking tropes and we're turning them on their head, or we're using them for comedic purposes.
Right.
I don't think Investigation does that. I think Investigation uses a police procedural as a way of talking about something more philosophical, if
Mhm.
that makes
Okay.
sense. But I definitely see where you're coming from, though. I think that does definitely use the police utechi genre as its platform to kind of talk about its larger themes, if that makes sense. So I do definitely see that's probably we're making the same point really. So I definitely see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting because I think that came out in like 1970, and this guy supposedly invented it like around this time. So it's like we're getting early here.
Yeah.
Like there were some aspects that even reminded me of La Samurai. Obviously, La Samurai is way more polished and pristine, but just in terms of how the plot unfolds, I suppose, reminds me a bit of La Samurai.
I can see that. Yeah, yeah.
These
Especially
films,
since the whole thing is like because the whole thing, I guess, in Samurai is for the cops whether or not he did it, whether or not he's the actual guy. Like that's who they think he
Yeah,
is. He was the assassin, and this one's whether or not this guy stole the $300,000.
exactly. And like in La Samurai, he's kind of caught between the cops and the bosses, and same in this, really, he's caught between the cops and the bosses.
these films are also kind of, I don't know if incestuous is the right word, but like there's a finite amount of people that are involved in all these projects, right? Like the lead for Investigation of a Citizen was John Maria Valente, who was in A Fistful of Dollars.
He plays the villain in Fistful of Dollars and For a Few Dollars More.
Yeah, exactly. And also he was in A Bullet for the General, which is a cool movie. So yeah, like they all knew each other and kind of worked together. Yeah, I'm almost curious to say, well, this is just getting into like speculation, but I wonder if one of the reasons he's an uncredited writer on, if we're talking about the Leo now, if he's an uncredited writer on some of these Leone films, is just because they were all kind of, in the studio together, just like pitching ideas and writing and kind of helping each other out. Like I wouldn't be.
Or like, hey, this producer, come in there with me and help me pitch this idea, and I'll give you credit for it, that kind of thing.
No, totally. Yeah. So I would say that would be true more than being like parodies necessarily. I also don't get the impression like if you look at the comedies that were coming out in Italy at that time, they were like they're like big slapsticky type comedies, like there wasn't a ton of stuff coming out theatrically that would have been like a parody or a satire or something. I'm sure an Italian historian is going to tell me I'm wrong, but at least from what I've seen. But yeah, I was just trying to see if the director of Investigation was also involved in this world, but it's not as obvious a connection. So anyways, but I'm sure they all know each other.
It does seem to have been like a big melting pot. It's like, when we watched Once Upon a Time in the West, and I saw Dario Argento's name, I was like, what the hell?
Why is he showing up?
Yeah, it does really seem to be that way with Italian films in this kind of era where everyone just kind of had a finger in each other's pot. People were helping each other. It seems like just Sergio Leone was just like being a pal to every young filmmaker that was coming through.
Yeah,
he's like, here, come help me with this, and it will give you a platform. He was just kind of just giving people a leg up, kind of like the Roger Corman,
Yeah.
of Italian cinema, just sort of giving these guys work and then them getting a leg up then through that, if that makes sense.
Well, that's a good call out. I was also going to say it's kind of old Hollywood in a way, right? Like it wasn't like you just came out of film school in like the 30s and got that, hey, you worked as a DP for me. Let me help you out and get you this started. Let me, you were a good key grip. Let me get you another job here. A little bit more than it is now.
I think just to back up everything we're saying, nothing makes the point better than composer of this movie, Luis Bacalov. So look, 1964, he was the composer for Pasolini's Gospel According to St. Matthew. And then he's the composer for Django in 66, Bullet for the General, 67. And by the way, there's like 5 movies in between everything that I'm mentioning that I just don't know. Then you get into, there's 20 movies between that and Caliber 9 in 72. And so then he starts working with DeLeo a lot. But here's this dude who is, everybody always talks about Morricone, rightfully so. And then after that, probably Nino Rota, right? The guy that worked so closely with Fellini. But then here's a guy that was quietly just the composer for like most of what was coming out in Italy at that time. And we don't even talk about Luis Bacalov really in the same way,
I'm sorry, just to go completely sidetrack for a second. I was just looking through Barbara Boucher's filmography. And I really like Barbara Boucher. I brought it up when we talked about Red Queen Kills 7 Times. It's probably one of my favorite Giallo movies, and she's the lead in that. She's awesome. And I was just looking through her filmography because I knew she worked in Hollywood a little bit. And I was just kind of scrolling up because she's still alive, she's still making movies. She made a movie in 2020.
I was going to bring this up.
Called Calibro 9. What the fuck?
It's a sequel. I was going to bring this up. Yeah.
And she plays the same character. Like it's a sequel?
Yeah, it's a direct sequel.
Okay, I thought it was a remake. And like, how is she playing the same character like 40 years later in a remake? Okay, it's a sequel. That's so interesting.
Yeah, I saw it like when I was going through the Wikipedia page. I was like, and then there was a direct sequel called Calibro 9. I was like, in 2020. I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah. That's crazy.
I mean, I guess the Arrow release came out a few years before that, so it probably got a little popularity, but like, but you said Raro did it as well. I don't know when Raro put theirs out.
Wait, did Arrow Video put this out?
I think this was like one of their old window box sets back in the day.
Oh, okay.
Oh, for real?
This remake or this sequel looks awful.
Oh, yeah.
The reviews weren't great.
This looks terrible. God damn it, Barbara. I shouldn't have signed up for this.
Yeah, I was looking at hers a few minutes ago. I was like, oh, she was in like Don't Torture Duck Lane and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, I know her.
Yeah, she's
great.
Good.
Have you seen The Red Queen Kills 7 Times?
I have. I love that movie.
That's so good. Yeah, it's really good. She's awesome in that.
She's a very beautiful woman.
Gangs of New York. Good for her. Got to work with Scorsese.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking at this old DVD now. So I didn't realize Arrow had put out. This is like, it must be an old release from them.
And I could be misremembering, but I thought that they had done a.
No, I have it here.
You do. Okay.
You're right. Yeah. That's just interesting. I had no idea. There's even a region-free release. This must be from. I can't quickly see when it came out. This is not good podcasting anyways here. But
I'm sorry for this completely derailing. I just could not believe that I thought it was a remake. Obviously now I know it's a sequel, but I still think that's absolutely crazy.
It's an interesting one. Like somebody saying, you know what, I really want to make a sequel to this 1972 police procedural from Italy.
That probably barely anyone even knows about. Like I don't even know if this is like considered like an iconic film. I don't know. Obviously, we're not Italian, so maybe this is like a really sort of good cult film that Italians would have watched growing up, or something. But I thought that was wild.
It's the creator of spaghetti westerns and Polizia Tecci films, so he's a name that should be more.
Every household says his name.
Yeah, I always find I remember when I first discovered this guy named Umberto Lenzi. I remember just being like, wow, he made some really batshit movies. I love this guy. And like Claudio Fragasso, we were talking about earlier, he made some movies that were just off the wall. I like discovering. I don't know what it is about Italian movies. I like the copycat aspect of a lot of what they were doing at that time. It's like, there's a crazy movie called, I think it's called Contamination, where it's like aliens, but make it for $500,000 and make it your own. And there's this goofy sort of physical like a monster in a suit almost at the end. It's like this big goofy looking monster in a suit. There's something about this that I've always loved. And DeLeo, I don't want to say I like his movies because they're funny. I really do enjoy them, but the campiness of them certainly plays into why I like it so much. There's, it's like a near Hollywood production or something. It's like it's not quite there in terms of quality of like from a technical perspective, quality of release, quality of film, these kind of things. But I don't know. I love it. I'm really glad y'all got to see it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it too. This is my first one, so I'll be kind of curious to go a little bit further in it, because I mean I'm used to, when it comes to Italian films, giallo and spaghetti westerns, but this has always kind of been a little bit of a blind spot for me.
The Italian Connection is the one I would recommend if anybody wants to watch. Given anything else from him a chance, the Italian Connection is kind of the one that me is the best from that first lot that I saw.
Yeah, I'd be curious to give another one a go. Like I said, I didn't hate it or anything like that, but I wasn't floored by it. But I would be curious to watch another one.
All right, well, I really want to thank Chris for bringing us really cool crime films, very different. So I'm gonna kind of follow suit in my double feature. And it's funny, we talked about getting away from the Criterion stuff. Well, one of mine is a Criterion release. It's going to be Valerie and Her Week of Wonders from 1970. It's a Czechoslovakian. Are they just Czech now? I can't remember. It's changed so often. I can't
just
remember.
Check now, yeah.
Yeah.
Just check.
Which is Adam says he's not going to rewatch it because he doesn't think he's going to get any more out of it. But it's a very fascinating movie. And the other one I'm pairing with it is The Company of Wolves, which is an 1984 film by Neil Jordan. They both take ideas of almost a fairy tale aspect to werewolves and vampires and stuff. So I thought they'd be fun to pair together. But so if you want to watch those before we talk about them in a couple weeks, there they are.
Awesome.
Sounds good. Finally doing an Irish director.
Yes.
And Neil Jordan. He's probably our most famous, to be fair. Perfect. So yeah, Valerie and a Week of Wonders. Yeah, I'm probably not going to rewatch it. But I am looking forward to the Neil Jordan one. I don't even think I've ever seen any Neil Jordan film, which sounds weird as an Irish person. Oh no, that's a lie. I've seen Interview with a Vampire and I've seen Michael Collins. So yeah, that's a lie.
Yeah, I was I thought you'd seen Interview at least.
Yeah, no, I have. That's cool. I'll be interested to see this one. It looks fun. So I'm looking forward to it. We'll close off now what we usually do with any other business. Just want to talk about something that we've seen recently that we just want to give a quick shout out to. My one's going to be pretty brief because I just haven't watched a ton lately with me being so busy. There's two films that are out currently on streaming that I quite enjoyed. The first one is Prey, which is the new Predator prequel film.
Uh-huh.
Best Predator films of 1987.
Agreed.
Really, really great film. I think more horror franchises should take a page out of this book and just drop random aliens and monsters into random time periods. Let's watch samurai fight xenomorphs, that kind of shit. I just think they did a really good job making this film. It's a great action film. Story was good. The lead actress is very good. Just a really just all around good horror action. It's just a good Predator movie, and it's been a while since we've been able to say that. So I got into a slight argument with a friend of mine is he was like, no, Alien versus Predator is better. And I was like, it's not really a Predator movie though. It's kind of like the way Freddy versus Jason isn't really a Jason movie. It's just not this. It's not really a true Predator movie. It is the best true Predator movie since the original, in my opinion. And then another film that I saw on Paramount Plus here, I don't know, I think it's on Hulu in America, is Honor Society, which is a teen sort of high school kind of comedy with I don't know how to pronounce her name, Angourie Rice. She's a good sort of up and coming actress, and one of the dudes from Stranger Things, Gaten Matarazzo. It's a good sort of high school drama comedy, but like it's a smart film. It's well made. It has a really good script. I'd kind of put it in the similar sort of school of like, you know, Superbad or Booksmart, or you know, it has a good script. It's well written. It's well put together. Has an engaging story, has a good plot. So if you're just looking for like a tight 90 film that's easy to watch, but it's also actually like pretty well done, Honor Society, I thought it was really enjoyable. That's it.
Well, that poster's so goofy, but I'll
it's very like it's very shit. What's the dude's name? Who did The Breakfast Club? John Hughes. It's very John Hughes, and it does have that influence. That's sort of John Hughes, and then like Clueless, Superbad. It sort of just follows that every few years they release good high school movies. This is like the one good high school movie that we'll get now for the next few years. So if you're just looking for something that's a tight 90, and has you know, it's well written, and you know, it's very self-aware. It's not like sort of made for kids. It does have some sort of off the cuff jokes. Especially around the school counselor potentially being a pedophile, ironically played by the guy who played McLovin in Superbad. So yeah, it's a good film. If you're just looking for something easy to watch, I would recommend it. I thought it was good. Okay. So yeah, Prey and Honor Society. Those are two films I've watched last week that I thought deserved a shout out.
Nice.
I can go next. So the only one I really want to shout out, I do want to just mention, I watched Bodies last night. Went to the theater to see that. I'll have a review up hopefully today, but that movie was a lot of fun, very interesting for modern slashers. So if you want to hear me drone on, I just did a podcast talking about some modern slashers coming up, and that was one of them. But really what I wanted to highlight this week is one of my favorite directors is Sam Peckinpah. And one I have a very big blind spot for of Walter Hill is the movie Extreme Prejudice, which has always kind of been his take on a Sam Peckinpah film, because the movie is essentially The Wild Bunch. It's just like there's these almost like two storylines going on of this cop played by Nick Nolte going up against this drug guy played by Powers Booth. Great cast, just great cast all around. It's got Michael Ironside, it's got Clancy Brown, Rip Torn, basically every character actor that was big.
Old white guys, the movie.
Yeah, pretty much. Like it was every character actor at the time. So, but at the same time, there's these basically these ex-military guys who were the government faked as being dead so they could do Suicide Squad-esque missions, essentially. And they're in the same city and they're kind of intersecting very slowly. It's very much a take on The Wild Bunch in a lot of ways. Like the violence is very Sam Peckinpah. There's slow motion in it, but just a really fun film. I was always nervous because I just didn't think it would live up to that. I like Walter Hill, not that much, but I do like Walter Hill. This was probably one of the better ones he has. It's very much a modern Western. So that's my shout out.
Nice. Yeah, just looking at it now. It looks cool. It has
Vestron Video did the release most recently. They just put it out.
Who did?
Yes, Vestron.
That's why I've seen it. Yeah. Okay, so in the last week, I've seen some good movies. I'm just gonna run through them really quick, and then I'll talk about one. So I rewatched A Clockwork Orange for the first time in at least 15 years. I'm on another Miyake kick. I saw Dead or Alive. I saw the second Anaconda movie, Enter the Dragon, and then just finished The Exorcist. There's a reason I saw all of those, which I won't bore y'all with, but I have kind of a system of, I try to mix it up on purpose, so I'm never watching something that's the same. So I just want to talk about A Clockwork Orange briefly, and I know that's not super exciting because like who hasn't seen A Clockwork Orange? But if you haven't seen it, go see that movie. Like, okay, so I remember some of the shocking elements from it from when I had seen it before, but I didn't realize, I think what makes that movie have such a strong legacy is that the whole thing is done with these bright colors and almost like this cheery outlook. You know, Malcolm McDowell is so amazing in that role, and he's so, like, if he's any less positive or any more kind of cynical in the way that he plays that character, it becomes almost like comically dark. But that balance of the way that he plays that role, the bright colors that are on screen, the kind of bright music almost, and then what's happening on the screen, I think is where that movie it works so well. It's almost like that balance was so, it had to be perfect for that film to work, and he just got it perfect. Even for the goofy things like the language that they use, it could easily fall into like satire or a bad comedy if it's in the wrong hands, like an unintentional comedy, I should say, not satire, if it's in the wrong hands, because it could be too goofy. But wow, that movie was great. I was sitting up just, you know, at attention for the last, you know, I don't know, hour of it or hour and a half of it.
If there's a scene that sums up that film in terms of the line you're talking about between goofiness and horrifying, it's the scene where they attack the woman while singing in the rain.
Yeah,
that's like the scene that best sums up the tone of that movie. And I don't know if you know the backstory behind that scene about how Stanley Kubrick had to go get the rights to that because he wanted to keep it in. That was ad-libbed, the fact that they were singing in the rain.
Oh.
Malcolm McDowell ad-libbed it, and Kubrick loved it so much he's like, go get the rights for that song, because I want to use that. So that wasn't planned. That was something that Malcolm McDowell had just done. Great actor. Second best Samuel Loomis.
Agreed.
But yeah.
Are you counting Sam Loomis from
Oh,
Psycho
shit.
in that
No,
too, or
I'm
is he
not.
third?
No, he's third best. I was literally going to say no. He's actually the third best Sam Loomis. Actually, is he the fourth best Sam Loomis after the fifth Scream movie? Isn't that character?
Oh
called
yes,
Sam
I
Loomis
forgot.
too.
Yes.
So maybe he's the fourth best Sam Loomis. But
I'm sure when the guy who wrote Psycho wrote the name Sam Loomis, he never thought it would be in about 800.
No, I don't think so either. It's been so long since I've seen Clockwork Orange, because of its violence and stuff. It's not one I'm keen to revisit, but I watched it a lot. You know, when I first got into film, it was sort of it was a staple of my. I've talked about my DVD collection I had as a teenager, and Clockwork Orange was a staple of that. So I've seen it a good few times, but it's been a long time. It's probably been about 10 years for me since I've seen it.
I just want to note, Chris, my girlfriend's going to be real upset you didn't talk about Anaconda, The Hunt for the Blood Orchid.
Wait, so just as a side, that movie's not bad. Like,
yeah, she loves it. I haven't seen it since it came out in like 2004, but yeah, she loves that movie.
Like, it's definitely better than the first, and
Or is it?
like, I think so. Because okay, so like,
It doesn't have John Voight like chewing scenery really badly. Like that makes Anaconda one.
yeah, okay, that's it's like John Voight's hilarious in that role. He's so goofy in that role. But like, you know, they have the idea of Anaconda, and then they add 10 more snakes.
It's like if Jaws had like 10 more sharks.
Yeah.
It's like when they did their market research after the first one came out. It was like, what do the people most like about this movie? The snakes. Okay, let's add
That
more.
amazing CGI snake.
Yeah. Yeah, actually the effects are worse in Blood Orchid because, you know, there's like, I don't know if it's all CGI, but there's a scene in Anaconda where the snake like pops up and you see the inside of his mouth and it looked pretty cool. But the CGI in Blood Orchid is worse. So there's two more in the series. I think that Hasselhoff is in either the third or the fourth one. So I'm about to go
I
into
think the next two were direct. They're surely direct to DVD.
The
I've
second
seen
one
the
was direct
first
to
two.
DVD.
Oh,
Yeah.
was it? I've seen that one as well. It's been so long since I've seen them, but I've definitely seen both of the first. I've seen the first two.
Yeah. I can't recommend Hunt for the Blood Orchid, but if you're in the movie to see, if you're in the mood to see a movie about big snakes, it's certainly in the top two of the ones I've seen so far.
Big praise.